This is SaaS Therapy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of SaaS Therapy, the show where we help you save your most important business relationships, your customers. I'm your host, Todd Kirk. I'm joined by my very chilly compadre, Casey Trujillo. It is almost June here in Utah where we live, and it is rainy and snowy. If you've listened to the show for a while, Casey does not like cold, wet weather. So I don't know. Casey, you doing okay today?
Well, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a shock to the system. My golf game was getting good. Now it's going to go on the back burner here for a week, I bet. So I'm trying to make it through, Todd, but knowing that we have a great guest with us today is going to be all that we need to make it through a Monday.
It is true. I'm really excited for our guest today. We have on Glenn Fleischman, who is the CRO, Chief Revenue Officer for AYTM, and we are pumped to have him on the show. Glenn, welcome to SaaS Therapy.
Thanks for having me. Really excited.
So, Glenn, I think this AI atmosphere we're in is like the weather today. I mean, right? In New York, it seemed like they got way more snow than we did here in Utah, but we're supposed to have the greatest snow on earth. Like Todd just mentioned, all of a sudden we have snow when we should be having sun. I feel like that's how AI is right now. Like one day, everybody's like, this is the best thing in the world. The next day, people are like, wow, this is like 5 years behind the schedule. Everybody's cutting budget of humans. And we're just going to say, hey, we're not going to hire 3 more people. We're going to cut 10 people. And that's what's going to fuel our AI initiative because this is going to do the work of 10 people. But Glenn, in talking and reading about the posts that you make, there's something that was very insightful that you said. And I want you to expound on that is if my systems are not set up with humans correctly, AI is just going to expose that. Is that what you're trying to say? Expound. I don't want to take for granted what you just said because it was so insightful. Explain this to the audience of what you mean by that.
Yeah, sure. So I learned this lesson the hard way by trying to implement and making mistakes. You can't, AI is amazing for scale, right? It's got the tremendous ability to let you scale things to work 24/7, to not, I won't say replace humans, because at least in our case, we're not replacing any humans with AI. We're using it to drive more productivity. But if you don't have those motions nailed, human motions, like for example, let's talk about the outbound SDR motion, right? We quickly tried to look to where we could build some agents and leverage all the tech stack that we had to, um, let's say quadruple our outbound capacity overnight. That was a really exciting cheat code for us. I had a couple of SDRs in the budget for this year, and we were thinking, hey, you know what, if we can roll the price of 1 or 2 of those into building out these agents, maybe we can get 10 for the price of 2. So we started going through that. And what we realized was we didn't have our outbound human motion nailed. We necessarily didn't have the right sequence, the right messaging. The responses and the conversion rate weren't exactly where we needed. So sure enough, when you go to scale that out and try to build that in AI, all you're doing is building on a sandy foundation. The reality is it's just not going to, well, you're scaling the same less than stellar performance. So what I would say is, as anyone in sales and marketing, growth marketing, or CS, as you're looking to implement AI to scale up a function, that might be retention marketing, that might be online trainings, that might be BDR, SDR work. As you're looking to do all of that, make sure that the motion you're basing your scale up on is working and is getting the right returns, because AI is not going to fix an underperforming tactic or an underperforming motion. All it's going to do is scale that.
Okay, so this is so I've as a person who's very fascinated in AI, I've liked to look at a lot of these tools that are out there for some of these like AI agent type tools, and some of them seem really promising and really interesting. But like in my experience, a lot of times I feel like as a person who I oftentimes is the person who gets sold to as well, I'm getting hit by all of these people who I know are not writing this copy. Some agent is reaching out on behalf of them, providing something that feels really personalized and tailored to me, but it always feels like it just doesn't, it's like you throw out words, like it's like you're bringing words together that you think I might resonate with, but you don't necessarily know who I am. Is that kind of where you feel like the breakdown is? Is it in the sense that like these agents are able to kind of fake being human, but you can kind of it doesn't pass the sniff test? Or is it just, or do you really just think it's like, well, you know what? If we just gave them better instructions and we had better clarity, they would get better results on the other end? Because I'm not sure, because I've noticed a lot of the ones that come to me, the reason it like I drown it out as a person who's oftentimes on the receiving end of these AI tools is I can just tell that it's like, there's no way you did that level of research about me as an SDR, as an example. Like if you did that for every single person you reached out to, it would take you years and years and years. And I don't know, makes me a little jaded when I receive those types of messages. So I'm
Yeah.
curious on what's your take, having the reactions of how customers have responded to that, and maybe am I just thinking about it wrong, or what most people are doing is they're just doing it to.
Well, I think it's a mix of things. There's definitely a tone of voice thing and a training involved in getting that right. If you're using anything out of the box, it's going to be sycophantic, overly complimentary, creating an echo chamber. So, if you don't invest the time on pulling that out of your messaging, it's going to be completely transparent what you're doing. But it's also like a time, place, and manner. It's the way you use it. So, for example, on our website, right, we've done a great job. Our AI functionality is called Skipper, and when you go to our website, you can really have a proper conversation. I shouldn't say conversation. You can really get valuable, very tailored information that someone who is, let's say, in the beginning of their buying journey and not ready to speak to sales yet can get. And I think we've done a great job of, that's a great example of scaling something that really worked. We handled that well with humans. We had the corpus of information available and we made it easy to do that. So we had the training materials. And as a result, when you go to our website, it's funny, I was on with someone and I just demonstrated it an hour ago, but you could, for example, go to our website and say into the little chat bar, what ISO certifications do you have related to market research, right? Or related to SaaS? And you're going to get a really well thought out answer immediately, without having to speak to a sales rep. And then there's deeper other things you can do about that, including like what are your strengths and weaknesses versus X competitor. So that's a great use for AI. It's an incredible scale functionality. You don't need people available 24. Our customer base is global, so we're getting people who are asking that question sometimes, on 3 a.m. on a Thursday night because they're on the other side of the world.
And
So
I love that thought process. I love that thought process because I just noticed this on a commercial now. On commercials, down at the bottom, sometimes you'll see the fine print. AI imaging was used in this commercial, or they're starting to call it out. So I love the idea of just saying, I'm not trying to fake a human. I'm not a human. And this is what I'm designed to do. And this is what I'm going to give you. I think that clarity makes you feel more comfortable of saying, hey, this agent is built to give you quick information. This is what you're looking for. It's not designed to sell you. It's just designed to give you information, blah, blah, blah. If you like to
exactly.
do more, hey, let's have a conversation, right? So I love that approach to that. Tell everyone a little.
And then, but you have
Yeah,
to have the off ramp. You've got to have the
right.
hero call to action, schedule a demo, speak to sales, do whatever. So you can at any time. Not only are we transparent, in our case, not only do we believe you should be transparent that you're interacting with AI, but give the off ramp to a human at any point.
So Glenn, I want to ask you a follow-up question. Before I ask this follow-up question, I want everyone to know your background. Like, what does your company do? Describe it of why I'd want to contract your services. Tell them a little bit more because I think this is going to go in. I want people to understand why you're an expert in this field. Tell them a little bit about what you do. Then I want to ask a follow-up question.
Sure. AYTM is in the market research space, and we are in consumer insights platform, so SaaS platform. So what that is consumer insights is this whole little subgenre. I shouldn't say little. It's a cohort within the marketing world of typically large enterprise companies and CPG, telecom, consumer tech, most B2C businesses, and some B2B that studies humor and consumer behavior and uses that for the product innovation process, ads and communications, brand tracking, sentiment tracking, all sorts of tools. So at the end of the day, it's a very sophisticated online survey platform connected to a community of over 100 million people, very, very detailed profiled around the world. That lets, like, if you were a company, let's say you were a drinks company that wanted to a soda company that wanted to launch a lime cola extension to your line, you could come to our platform and look at women aged 25 to 42 who have bought soda in a supermarket in the last 60 days. And you could touch base with them about what they think about a line cola. Would that replace their current cola buys, or would that, um, or would that add to what they're, would that be incrementality? Would they be buying more soda because of that? And, show them packaging and branding and ideas and what it might look like on a shelf, and get all that feedback from them about how they interact with it. Even in like in an e-commerce environment, where you could load them an ad in a fake TikTok,
Hmm.
simulation, and see how they interact with the ad in their TikTok stream. So it's sophisticated. It's online surveys, a human community, and then really sophisticated analysis on the back end to be able to produce insights and call insights out of all the data we collect. And then there's a human agency overlay on top to be able to help. Think of it as professional services to be
Of
able to
course.
help our customers use the platform.
All right, perfect. So Glenn, with that line of thinking, obviously you're in the game of insights, knowledge, understanding, which I love. Do you think companies have done that type of research as they think about their AI plan? Does that make sense? Like one of the things that I think about is one company turns on the AI engine, they talk about a success story, and then every other CEO, CIO is like, we got to go do that. I mean, verbatim, cookie cutter. I can tell you every organization that is adopting AI, and they're going off of the same premise of the other organization. But guess what? Every organization isn't the same. And so I don't think they've done their due diligence in understanding how could AI assist us at our organization. They haven't done the thought work besides, well, AI is what we're supposed to do. So this is what we're going to do. And this is our plan. And they tell every one of their team members, hey, we're going to be AI first. Let's do it. Well, what are we going to do? What's our strategy? But no, 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 just go do it. Okay. And all of a sudden, I think we're going to have this in 6 months, 8 months, where people are going to come back and say, I just bought this and this isn't useful. We had it during the pandemic. Everybody went and bought all this collab software. And then every collab software out there in the world just skyrocketed like crazy. And then you know what happened 2 years later? All of this collab software didn't get renewed. And because people were like, wait, we never even used it. We used it for a moment. And then all of a sudden we said, did we get anything different out of it? No, we didn't. And so I think in 8 months, in 16 months, people are going to look and say, how much did that AI agent cost us? Did we get anything out of that? Did we get any different results? And going back to your point, Glenn, of like, if my product isn't selling right now, just because AI is telling more people about it doesn't mean it's going to sell anymore. That wasn't the problem. So I don't know. Am I wrong in that? Give me your insights since you're an insight company. Help me understand. Do you think people have done the homework like you're trying to get companies to do of like, hey, before you launch a lime cola, see if it's actually going to be something that's going to work well and people are going to replace it. Like, don't go invest all that money until you know that there's actually a need for it.
Yeah.
Glenn, what do you think? And I know it's a slippery slope, but you can agree with me, disagree. Me and Todd always say, hey, this is SaaS therapy. It's designed to be a little bit of an argument. What do you
I
think?
mean, everything you're saying, it's all happening and none of it's happening. The way I think about it, what has not changed and what will not change is that when you make a third party purchase, whether you're purchasing tokens through your LLM, whether you're purchasing typical SaaS with AI embedded into it, a native AI application, whatever, right? Metrics have to show one of three things: it increased revenue, it decreased costs, or it decreased risk. If you didn't produce one or more of those three things, I wouldn't put that renewal in your forecast, because there's a real risk of not getting ROI. And every CFO who is having unprecedented amount of requests for money, you've heard these stories of, I think it was Uber. I think Uber announced they blew through their entire token budget for the year by the end of March, and it was an astronomical amount. They had budgeted a huge amount for token usage because they were going all in on the coding application for AI, and they had blown through their token allotment for the year already, and having to pull budget from other places. That's happening everywhere. But to answer your question, it's funny. From my seat, from where I sit, I'm really lucky. I have a front row view of what the biggest consumer companies in the world are doing, from the bleeding edge folks that are right on the front lines of it, all through the people who are, maybe say conservative and laggards, and which might be for good reasons. They're in big regulated industries like financial services or healthcare, and they need to move a little slower, because the key to making all this work is connecting the data sources, connecting all your silos of data into it. It's one of the biggest promises of AI is making sense of all those silos of data we have everywhere. So what I see is the folks at the front edge that are leading, they are doing a better job at getting those data sources connected. And then so they're able to empower not just programmers, but regular customer facing people to build agents and access that data in terms of being able to use AI to pull insights out of their silo or get smarter as they go on. One example. So we have a large, massive global financial services customer who was an AI laggard. They're on our what we call our AI blacklist. They're not authorized to use any of our AI features. So we have to feature flag, turn off all of our AI in their instance of our platform because it's not approved yet. But they got a new CMO, and the new CMO came in and said, everybody needs to use AI everywhere. No more headcounts, no more anything until you show me why you couldn't do it with AI. And of course, all their workforce went back to them and said, okay, great. Give me permission, turn it on for me. I'm blocking all my vendors from turning on AI. And now all of a sudden, you know, legal and procurement and other people who, we just couldn't work with us were now all of a sudden bending over backwards to help get through the approval processes to do it. So sometimes it just takes something like that.
I think there's two things that came to my mind as you were saying that there, Glenn. And one is I actually love your point about, Casey started this with, hey, every business is different. And there's oftentimes good reasons to go a little bit slower. I remember all the way back, 25 years ago when I was in college, thinking about the strategy classes that you would take and the concept of the first mover versus the second mover advantage. And in any market and any change, the real thing is important is that you move. But when you move, there's a lot of advantages of being the first person who moves because you might figure out the secret first, but the person who moves second oftentimes can avoid a lot of the pain and the cost and the anguish that comes from all of the lessons that you have to learn kind of, fighting your way through the jungle with a machete.
Sure.
So
Remember
there,
MySpace.
yeah. And so there's some really interesting things on that front that I think are important and I think is really critical to learn. But you also said something that I think is important for people to understand too. I think in order for any sort of AI moment to really work, you have to be able to connect the right data sources and the right systems together to get the right context and the right data and the right insight. In my world, in the world that I've lived in, even from just like a education perspective, and you're trying to make good content or good training for someone. What's interesting is we always say, garbage in, garbage out. And so when it comes to AI, if you don't have the right data connected or the right sources connected, it can lead to a lot of crummy results on the other end. So basically, this is a really long setup to what my actual question is going to be, because there's kind of two parts to this, right? One is, when do you move? And then what do you move on? Right? Because if you connect the wrong data or the wrong systems, you can waste a lot of time and a lot of energy on things that aren't going to be right. But even if you know that you want to move, are you more willing, or is it better to then say, kind of grope through the dark and not know exactly what you're going to do, or wait and see what other people are doing and then just try to copy them? Do you have an opinion on which of those strategies are better, or like where you've seen that work and not work?
Yeah. I mean, I could give you an example just from my own life right now, right? We're a Slack shop, and I love Slack. It's a major part of my day. And I don't know if you've played with Slackbot yet or experienced with Slackbot, but I absolutely love it. It's been a game changer for me in terms of getting answers and productivity. And, whereas I was normally maybe pinging humans multiple times a day or going into Gong and having to, analyze calls or, do all the things you might do to get some information about what's going on with a particular account or cohort or whatever, or a deal. Slackbot has been incredible. It's just like breaking down the silos for me, looking at all the data it has access to, and giving me like very often the answer I'm looking for. But, and this is crazy because Slack is owned by Salesforce, my Salesforce data isn't connected to Slackbot. And so I'm going to my RevOps team and saying, I want Salesforce in here yesterday. I want to be able to look at Salesforce through Slackbot and cross it with all the rich history that I have sitting in Slack in my customer channels. And, they were like, okay, slow your roll, Glenn. It's not that we can't do it, right? And, this is why I love my head of RevOps, because she reports to me and is, and is smart enough to keep me out of trouble and say, hey, I'm not giving you the keys to that castle just yet. Because, if you do that, you can actually make it's a bi-directional tool, and you can make changes in Salesforce and delete things that you may not want to delete. And, with the scale means you can do it, you can cause some damage, right? And there's issues with logs and stuff. So in any event, she is finding the right safe way to do that and is happy for me to say, hey, I know you want it yesterday. You need to give me a little time so I can do this safely. That's a great example. That's a great example where you have to not just connect the right data, but you have to correct it the right way and not expose yourself and get yourself into trouble.
So Glenn, I'm fascinated by what you do for your living. And one of the questions that I always get in a debate with my coworkers is causation and correlation. So I'm going to shift a little bit from AI and just go into again what your sweet spot of giving insights and your platform's delivering insights. You could debate, it seems like, forever on causation and correlation. Glenn, any best practices as people look at this? So again, it could be the AI data, it could be the impact of a CSM versus, hey, these accounts just renew because our product's so freaking great. How do you help people understand causation and correlation? How do you help them get a clear line in that? Because that's when I just I'll say, hey, here's a proof point, and they'll go, that's kind of a correlation. That wasn't causation. And then they'll give me a point. I'm like, no way, that's causation. Any best practices in how to do that? Especially with insights, because I could be talking to a customer today, especially in what you're doing B2C even more, of where I'm just having a good day today and everything's rosy and I love everything. And so, yeah, I love this product and this product would be so good. And then I catch the consumer on a bad day and everything's gone wrong in their day and their dog's sick and this is sick. And you know what? It doesn't matter what you pitch me. I'm not excited about it. So how do you manifest all of this information into good data that actually you can action on? And so I guess the original question is causation, correlation, any best practices around that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't pretend to be a true market researcher myself, right? I mean, nobody wants me writing their surveys for them and doing the statistical analysis that's required. But what I can tell you is that really what we're talking about here is what's anecdotal and what's a real reliable pattern that we can rely on, right? And what that gets down to is what we call N, sample size, right? So if you're talking about a couple of individual examples and you're extrapolating that out to a whole group without having the real data behind it to know that, hey, we know in this particular cohort, it's whatever. If they buy 3 products, we know their NRR is going to be at least 125%, something like that. Sorry, I don't mean to get super sales stats geeky, but again, I'll give you an example from my life, right? NRR is something I pay a lot of attention to, and if you look at our overall NRR, it's good, and it's certainly any outside investor would say, okay, you've got good solid NRR. That's what we like to see. It's not quite world class where I want it to be. I like it to be 130, something like that across the whole company. And anecdotally, I can look at individual accounts that churned or didn't churn or upsell and downsell and try to give you a pattern based on that. But what I know is when you cohort out my client base between enterprise, mid-market, and a long tail of non-ICP accounts that we've taken on over the years that we've gotten better at not bringing onto the platform these days. I've got world-class NRR on my enterprise team. I've got just about where I need to be in my bid market. And that long tail of non-ICP is really what's dragging down my overall number. I can see that with data because I have enough sample sizes across and it's undebatable. So now I know and I can prove back that when I bring on ICP accounts 3 years from now, they're going to be in exactly the cohort I need them to be in. Because we know that just those that particular profile of accounts has such good product market fit with what we do. They're going to continue growing and continue investing. And we know this other cohort who often comes in like with a hot need and wants to use, but it's often a one and done type of thing. And they don't have enough uses throughout the year. Our platform is powerful and complex, so you need to use it regularly to be able to get a lot of value out of it and become a power user. But if they come in with one hot project and they use it once, especially with our professional services, they're not going to use it again. And it's hard to justify the subscriptions. Looking at the data, what all I'm really doing is differentiating between what's correlation and causation by increasing my sample size and looking at the patterns in each cohort.
Mm.
Sorry, that was maybe, I don't know if that was the good answer.
I thought your answer was really fascinating regardless, because it leads me to this, to a really interesting question, right? Which is, a lot of businesses, especially in the SaaS world, there's bad revenue and there's good revenue. You can chase after bad revenue that costs you a ton of money, and your CAC is so high you never recuperate it anyway. And so I don't know, in your non ICP world, is it so upside down where you would say we should just like stop spending any energy there, like at all? Or is it like, well, the revenue's okay because at least our CAC's low and we get some money from them, but they churn, so that doesn't look good, but it's okay. Obviously, it gets into some really interesting territory there. For me, the reason why, and you don't obviously have to get into all that specifics unless we really want to nerd out on your financials as a business, which I don't think is necessary for today. But I think what's interesting to me is if I put myself in the seat of somebody in a business who is not at the CRO level, who may not have all that context, may not have all that understanding of how you've made the decisions that you've made, it can be a little bit frustrating, right? Because you might look up at the C-suite and be like, these guys don't get it at all. They're making boneheaded decisions because, in the trenches, you have a completely different view and a completely different understanding of what's going on and why you would make decisions that you would make. And you sometimes feel at odds. So what do you do as a business to try to drive better alignment across those different segments of the business who may not have that context and that understanding, and you may feel a little bit of tension in the business when you're trying to understand and change those numbers at a macro level? It sometimes can create tension at a micro level. I don't know if that
Yeah.
I think there's a question in there, but I'm going to just let you take that where you
So
want.
I'll tell you, first of all, what I'm about to tell you doesn't make me a sales genius or anything. It wasn't like I figured out some brilliant thing. I just have enough gray hair and I've been doing this long enough that I've made every mistake there is to make in the world. I've had enough bad beats and I've gotten punched in the face enough to learn some lessons over the years. So, like if I think about AYTM, when I came here about a year and a half ago, what I found was, a very good intention reason. They would take any customer who came in with almost ruinous empathy, and they would treat every customer the same way. So if you would come in with one $10,000 project, or if you'd come in with a $500,000 ongoing subscription use case, you more or less got the same treatment. The sales cycle was pretty much the same. The post-sale service was the same. In many cases, the small non-ICP customer took more resources because they don't have market research expertise. So they were relying on our professional services humans for a lot more. They couldn't really use the platform by itself because they didn't have the analytical chops to be able to analyze the results that come out from their surveys. So when I came in, it was immediately obvious to me what was going on here, and we could find a way to match the services and the sales cycle and the CAC that we deliver to the size of the account. And so on the new business side, we seriously honed in on what our ICP was, defining it really clearly, building this into our CRM and making sure that our comp plans were reflecting the selling the kind of organizations and servicing the kind of organizations that really needed to be part of our future. Our initial thought for the long tail that wasn't that was that, okay, look, either we're going to have to build a true pure self-serve model for them, where they come in, give a credit card, buy online, get some stripped down version of it and no human help whatsoever. But the truth is, we know most of them wouldn't have been able to accomplish what they needed to accomplish. So we were thinking about how we were going to have to tell them politely, you need to find another vendor. But then AI changed it all, right? And now all of a sudden we've been building AI functionality into our platform since the beginning. I would say in our market, we're certainly in the top echelon of, AI driven insights. But the next level of our platform is called the Bridge, which is coming out Q4 of this year. It is literally like embedding a master's degree level market researcher in the platform with you, so that a whole new group of personas can do market research that, didn't have those chops before and that would normally need to go an agency route and, work with an agency that's bringing the human expertise. That's going to be in our platform. So it's a place. The short answer is with AI, you can really service all those cohorts, and you can, if you want, expand your ICP because you don't have to have the same human cost to deliver services. And that was a lesson we learned a little before the AI, and now our AI is changing our plans. Turns out we're going to be able to keep them if they want to stay.
That's awesome. And a great, again, a great use case. This one's off topic conversation here on this because I hear things like that and then my brain goes in different spots. And I don't know if everybody else is thinking around this, but
It's fine. I'm excited to see wherever you go. But
yeah,
Glenn,
yeah. So here's the
we warned
question.
you. He could go anywhere. Let's see what
I
happens.
can go anywhere. Glenn,
Bring
here's
it
one of
on.
the questions that I want to ask. And it doesn't have to be about your product. It could be a product that they've enabled AI into their legal software and it gives out legal advice, or AI in a healthcare software. What do you do when your AI is wrong and it costs the company a lot of money? So let's do a legal services. The legal
Yeah.
services does the AI, it gives the recommendation. The recommendation is completely wrong. Data was wrong in which it went to go research something. A law had changed. It gives legal advice. It's horrendously wrong. Company loses millions. They're upset about the software because the software, hey, it gave me this recommendation. I followed the recommendation. What happens here? Does anyone know this? Does anyone have any data or has this happened yet? Like, I apologize that, being on the sell side, I don't know this. I don't read as much as you two. So
Casey
is
doesn't
this
spend any
happened
time
yet?
in Wall Street Journal, so he doesn't know if this kind of
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
happens.
yeah. Has this happened yet? And who
Well,
takes
here's
responsibility?
what I can tell you.
Like, we're just at a bar having some beers here.
Yeah.
Like, who handles this?
Well, here's what I can tell you. I have a good friend, one of my poker buddies, who's a litigator. And when just basic, even ChatGPT, I started using it to ask contractual questions that I normally would have turned to our attorney for. And I was getting answers faster. And it was in many ways incredible for me. And I said, "Hey, are you looking for the next job? I mean, what are you going to do with your career? Lawyers are going to be out of business in 12 months." And he said, "We're gearing up for all this litigation. So many lawsuits are going to happen because people are going to rely on that. Turns out to be wrong, or applied the wrong law or the wrong context, or didn't understand state or local statutes versus federal laws, and all these things." He said, "This is going to be a source of revenue for us." Right? Such a typical thing a litigator would say.
It's so true.
Yeah. But having said that, like for a startup who's maybe doesn't have an in-house counsel yet and is paying by the hour, maybe you could save 50-70% of your hours, and you can do a lot of the legwork yourself, and then maybe just turn for the really crucial things like just not the boilerplate contract stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So there you go, Casey. You got that's a fun insight. I like that, Glenn. The one thing that that I've been thinking about in this whole process, right? We've jumped around a lot to really a lot of different use cases of where AI can impact the business in positive ways, a little bit
Mm,
in negative ways, but it seems like a lot of the positive outweighs the good, right? And there's a tension that exists right now that I've noticed in with pretty much every business that I've talked to. In fact, I posted about LinkedIn just recently about the fact that there are some people who are super, super excited and very all in. There are some people who are super afraid. But there's a weird tension that exists where there are some people who are like really wanting to dig their heels in and resist the AI revolution because they think of its bad social impacts or all kinds of different negative impacts that could be happening, but they're not speaking up. And then you have other people who are super gung ho, but they don't want to seem irresponsible. And so they're jumping forward with like full feet into the pool, right? But they're not necessarily telling people that they're jumping full in. And so there's a little bit of this weird mismatch that's happening. Regardless, AI seems to be here to stay. It's not disappearing. And I think a lot of people are unsure of how to navigate this. And some are afraid they're going to get left behind. Some are afraid that they're going to miss out. Some are afraid that they are maybe going to make the wrong decisions. And so we've explored a lot of different use cases. But basically, I think this comes down to what do you think people need to do in order to make sure that they don't miss out and that they're able to adapt and figure out how to live in this new world to be successful moving forward? Because we've talked about all kinds of different scenarios today where AI can be useful. If we were to paint with a broad brush, or you could give some advice to people, like what would you tell them to do? Like how can they approach this in a way that's going to be beneficial for them?
yeah. Great question. Indulge me. I'm going to tell you a little story, but it'll answer the question in a fun way. So this is not my first technology change. I've been through just about all the technology changes in my career. I entered the workforce in 1992. I've been through and my first CRM was a set of index cards, or what's called a Rolodex. Nobody probably even knows what that is anymore. We had one big desktop computer that 3 people shared, and we used it primarily for word processing. It was the dark ages. And so I was there as this individual contributor sales rep in, early 96 when our customers were first getting email addresses and asking, hey, I don't want to fax or mail it to you. Can I just email you this thing? So, a couple of us who were young, I was 25 at the time, 26, going to our boss and saying, "Hey, let's call him John." Going to our boss John and say, "John, can we an email address, please? Can I expense my AOL address so I can use it with customers?" And in a scene straight out of the television show The Office, he pulled us into the conference room one day, and in his hands, he had 2 things. In one hand, he had a computer monitor, old square, amber, heavy monitor. And in his other hand, he had a desktop phone, all the buttons, the curly cord, everything. And he said, this, the computer monitor, is a toy. This, the phone, is a tool. He said, you got to decide if you want to be a child and play with toys or if you want to be an adult and play with tools. He said, if you're going to be in sales and you're going to work for me, you're going to use the phone and use business tools. This is a toy. It's always going to be a toy. So stop asking me for email addresses, stop asking me for internet access, and go out and sell something. That did not age well. So as you can imagine, John's career stalled, and that was pretty much the last professional job he had in his career. And by the way, he was in his probably mid 40s when that happened. So ever since that profound experience, I've always had in my head, lean into the next technology shift, right? So when social media came about, of my generation, of my age people, I was the first person that had a MySpace, a Facebook, an Instagram, even LinkedIn. I got on as quick as I could. I just always had that experience in my head of, God, I never wanted to be the person shying away from that next thing, because I just remember how it impacted John's career. And so I've leaned into everything. It's always served me well. Every single technology shift definitely took some jobs out of the workforce. I don't think when Google came about, I guess your days working for the Yellow Pages were numbered, but there was no such thing as a social media marketing manager, right? And
Right.
that's a whole new career that got created that didn't exist pre-Google. So I think AI is no different. It's going to create more jobs than it kills. But in the short term, for the next 5 years, 8 years, I really don't think you're going to lose your job to AI, but you might lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI better than you. So my suggestion is look and see what your company is making available to you, lean into it, get comfortable with prompting, try to figure out how to build an agent on your own, even if you're doing it not with your company's data, because it's not connected to you, but just try to build simple things and try to use it for even small use cases. You'll figure out more and more. I'll give you an example. For this podcast, I used AI to prepare me and train me. I had my agent, I call it GlennBot. I had my agent ingest all of SaaS Therapy episodes, all the comments, and I said, build me a training guide based on what kind of questions Todd and Casey asked. And I got this really cool training guide that was very useful to prepare it. I saw the typical questions you asked, the typical archetypes of the people you've had on. And in half hour, 45 minutes, I felt like I was really prepared for this interview, much more than I would have been had I just turned up cold.
That's awesome.
And there's no way I had a time to listen to more than one episode. There's no way I could have listened to 50 episodes that thing ingested.
That's awesome. And I'm sure in that your Glenn bot, it said Casey asks really thoughtful, insightful questions. Todd rambles for a while and then asks the question. Was that in there?
Exactly.
It said devilishly handsome.
That
Devilishly handsome.
that was what he was talking about me, unlike Casey.
I won't say who.
Glenn, this has been awesome. We like to end every SaaS Therapy episode because we do believe it's therapy with some homework. Because if you've ever gone to therapy, your therapist is always like, "Hey, this is what we want to work on over the next couple of weeks till we meet again," right? So, Glenn, you can choose anything. If there's one homework assignment you give to our audience, what would that be?
Yeah, I would say my homework assignment is don't be like John. Lean into AI. Ask your company what resources are available to you, what models and what tools you have access to. If you don't have any, spend a little money and subscribe yourself to the pro and play with it. Watch some podcasts where people are talking about these kind of things. On YouTube, there are literally a million videos of how to build your first agent, how to prompt engineer. It's actually overwhelming, but just pick one or two, start modest, start small, and try to use it in your job in small ways. For those things that normally you would go and ask a human for, just try asking your Slack bot if you've got Slack, and you'd be shocked at how well it can answer you. So I would say lean in.
I love it. Thanks, Glenn. And thanks everybody for joining us as usual. We release new episodes every Wednesday. So if it's your first time here, give us a follow, subscribe, and come back next week. For those of you who are curious about Glenn, if you want to find Glenn Fleischman on LinkedIn, I suppose is maybe a good place to point you. Or Glenn, any other places where people want to connect and find you in the future? What's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a great place to find me. I don't even know what. Just search my name, Glenn Fleischman, on LinkedIn. You can go to AYTM's website as well, aytm.com. I'm sure I'm on there somewhere.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Glenn. And thanks everybody as always. We hope to see you again next time. SaaS Therapy is brought to you by Brainstorm, the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.